Harmonize with me and hold me tight all through the night. You're shining bright. I'm your oyster, baby. You're my pearl.
William,
Tom,
we're here.
here we are in the Friendship Onion studio.
Not only the Friendship Onion studio, but a Friendship Onion studio resplendent with new fan art.
Fan art all over the walls.
Yeah. There's a picture above you of Perry and Mippin. There's you as Captain Jean-Luc Picard.
Well, I would be wonderful.
Yep. There's a kind of an anime tribute to the four hobbits here.
There's stick drawings.
It's
there's
lovely.
Onions.
We're running out of space because I don't know where to put this one, which is my favourite out of the fan arts.
I do enjoy that one very much.
We're just trying to figure out where to put that. I might just have that there.
Just at all
most
times.
weeks. It's lovely.
That was when we had the side cameras for Billy and Dom Eat the World. I want them back.
I want them back too.
I want them back.
You look handsome. What have you been up to this week? Anything interesting to report? They're sharp, them, aren't they?
Yeah, I keep doing that.
Mm.
What's this part of a sword called?
Is that the hilt?
Well done, Dom.
Take it right up to the hilt.
Exactly.
Yeah.
What's been happening this week? Not a lot, really. I bought
Oh God.
I bought a new
Hoover.
No.
Spatula. Colander.
No.
Sieve.
No.
Is it for the kitchen?
No. Yeah.
Is it?
Well,
Force it.
it goes outside.
Dog.
Something happens inside near the kitchen,
A mop.
and then it goes outside.
It goes outside. Why? Because it stinks. A bin.
No.
Compost.
No.
Fridge.
Uh,
Fridges don't tend to go outside.
Sometimes they're empty, and when they're empty, they're of no use.
Ice cleaner. Ice box.
You
Icy
hang
box.
things on it.
A maiden. A washing maiden.
What's that?
Is that what it's called?
What's that? Washing maiden?
I think that's what my mother calls it. Hello, Maureen.
Hello, Maureen.
That you put your washing on to dry?
Yeah.
Okay.
A clothes horse.
Yeah, clothes horse. Nice.
I bought a new one.
Okay. What happened to the old one? Destroyed by your dog.
I washed my sleeping bag.
Why are you going camping?
I don't know, maybe.
That's a strange thing. Well, I must get that washed. What's
I
going
rinsed
on?
it just very, very simply. And but when I got it out the bath where I washed it in, it weighed a tons of.
You've made some terrible decisions this week.
And I put it on the clothes horse, and the clothes horse, like an old horse would, his legs just went woof from out from under him.
Well, I could imagine. What was like a 75-pound sleeping bag when it came out of the bath?
It weighed it was a lot.
Mm.
But so I had the normal horse that went up like to a point, like a triangle.
An actual horse.
No, the clothes horse went like that. But I got a new one that goes like that, but also it's got wings that come out like that.
Oh, lovely. An
A lot
extender.
more room.
Mm.
I put a big load on this morning, Dom.
Lovely.
All darts.
All
And I
down.
hung it, and I took every single inch of space on this thing.
Wow. Now, is that outside or in?
It's outside.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's for the drippage.
Getting a bit of air about it.
Yeah, nice.
That's natural, that, isn't it?
I still can't solve the conundrum of how to not have my clothes smell fusty. Did we talk about this?
Do you think it's because I don't get that?
But do you have as many T-shirts as me?
No, I don't think so. I rotate
You
more than you.
rotate, I would say, probably 15 to 20 max, right?
At the most.
I mean, have you ever seen me in this T-shirt before?
Yeah, I saw you online with that T-shirt on.
Oh, yeah, well, that's kind of... Yeah, okay.
It's nice.
But
isn't it?
not often.
It's a big dog.
It's a big Doberman, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a Doberman pinscher.
Yeah. My thing is, because I have a lot of T-shirts, I won't get round to wearing the same T-shirt for probably 6 months maximum, minimum.
Minimum.
Not maximum, minimum.
Minimum.
And when I put it on, even though it's clean and it's come out the washing machine and it smells like, fluffles or whatever you call it now smells a bit fusty, like a second-hand
I
shop.
don't get that. Maybe somebody out there in the Friendship Onion universe can help us, because I would think it's not going to start unless does your closet smell?
No, I wouldn't say.
Like if you took all the clothes out.
Yeah, does my closet smell of
Yeah.
tuna fish or something like that? No, it doesn't smell of anything.
So where's it picking up the smell?
I don't know.
Is it damp in your house?
No. It's a mystery. But if anyone knows, someone said to me, well, we went for dinner the other night, and
Yeah.
someone said, have them be all dry cleaned and then individually put in plastic. And I said, well, there's no way I'm going to do that.
Well, it's not like you're a high-end T-shirt store.
And also, it's only good once. When it's encased in plastic, that thin, that plasticky stuff, maybe it's good then, but then as soon as you take it out, it's not good again. But, like, I don't have as many T-shirts as everyone else. Let's take, for instance, someone who is a little bit of a style icon, David Beckham.
Yeah.
He probably has hundreds, if not maybe even thousands of items of clothes. If he doesn't wear a suit for a couple of years, when he goes to take it off the hanger again, is it a bit fusty?
Well, that's a good point.
Ask David Beckham.
No, I've got suits
Yeah.
I don't wear, but when I put them on, they don't smell fusty.
Fusty?
Fusty. What do you call it?
Fusty.
Fusty.
But I like it.
Fusty.
Fusty. Fusty. Lovely.
If you do know, why
please.
clothes would smell for no other reason.
Yeah,
than
just the lying around. Not lying around, hanging around. Hanging about.
Must have something to do with something.
Oh, I would think it has something to do with something for sure.
Good. I'm glad we cleared that up.
It's been quiet on the riff this week as well, hasn't it? We've not really been.
No, there's not
riffing.
been much going on.
We
I tried a new champion.
Who?
With you?
Who?
I don't know. She was down in bottom lane.
Oh, Samira. What a
It's
nightmare.
very difficult.
Well, the thing about Samira, which we all had to endure, is that you have to be playing at a very high level for all of her abilities to unlock.
Yeah.
That's rough. Rough. I'm going to start playing Yorick, alas.
Alas, poor Yorick.
Mm.
What does he do?
He is he looks like a little bit of a sourpuss, and he's got like a couple of little like minion-y characters that come out around him to protect him, kind of like helpers, like a little bit like Malzahar. But then his ultimate, he brings forth the Maiden.
Who's the maiden?
The Maiden. She's just called the Maiden. She's like a ghostly figure that goes and attacks people for him. Our friend Andrew plays Yorick. Oh, you played golf with Andrew. How was that?
It's good.
Four. Hit any squirrels?
No, but I did see a dead pigeon.
Oh, do you think it'd been hit by a golf ball?
Yeah, I think so.
Do you?
It was very fresh.
Oh, that's a shame.
Yeah.
Did you see any injuries on it? Do you see a golf ball nearby? No.
No.
Wow. Hit by a golf ball.
Yeah, that
Probably
was
be quick.
sad. It was just 9 holes, and I was very rusty.
Fusty.
But do you play much golf? Not really.
You
Dom,
know I
but you
don't.
played a little.
I played a little with you. I'm not good.
And it's that way where when you go to swing, you feel as if your body's forgot how to swing a golf club.
Bit tight.
And you just go, that was ugly. It just felt ugly. I'm sure it looked ugly. But it was fun.
Out of the three of you, would you put yourself in third? How's your son
well,
and how's Andrew?
Andrew won. I was second.
Much better?
Jack, no.
No.
It was
just about
like,
the same.
I think it was 2 strokes he won by.
Okay, right.
We're all about the same, to be
Right.
honest.
It's nice when you play with people who are the same. The worst is
Yeah.
playing golf with someone who's excellent, and then he or she gets bored that you're kind of dragging your feet, and you're like, well, there's nothing I can do. This is going to be 17 shots to get in the hole.
Another guy came round with us. That's the only. That's one thing I don't really like about golf is people can just join your gang.
Oh, what did he just say? Would you mind?
Well, if it's normally 4. You go round in 4s.
4.
It's all 4s in golf.
Mhm.
And if you haven't got your 4, like us, we had a 3, and we were just teeing off, and the guy from the who's running the course said, "This is Zach. He's going to join you on the." And you're like, "No, don't bother."
Yeah.
But you can't say that.
But Zach can't go around on his own, can he?
No, so they'll add him to whoever's got a 3.
Fair enough. Because if you think about his shoes on the other foot, if you're in Mexico,
Yeah,
está mi amigo Billy.
yeah. But I would rather go around myself.
Would you?
But they won't let you. Because then you're holding up the whole thing, aren't you?
Well, how good was Zach?
He was actually all right.
Mm.
He was probably, I would say, the same as us again.
Nice.
Everybody was about the same.
Well, that's lovely when that happens. Well, William, we've got a fantastic guest today.
Yes, we do, Tom.
Someone who really speaks my language because...
English.
Yes, and yours too. Because he works in soil ecosystem responses to climate-driven environmental changes, also evolutionary ecology, ecological genomics, soil biodiversity, and microfauna. Basically, the tiny, teeny, tiny little creatures that live in between the teeny tiny little pieces of soil.
He's interested in that, is he?
He's interested, all right.
It's amazing, isn't it, the world, how it works? It's a big, crazy machine manned by many, many different species.
Yeah.
Just keeping it going.
Keeping it going.
Without these little things, the big things won't have anything to eat, right?
Absolutely.
Things won't grow.
Clean soil, fresh air,
Oh,
plants grow. All
isn't
that
that
kind of stuff.
amazing?
Yeah. I watched a documentary on infinity the other night. It's on Netflix. You'd like it.
About
Our friend Professor Brian Greene was on it, talking about the notion of infinity and what we initially thought was infinite, and now what's infinite to us.
but isn't infinite always infinite?
Is it?
I think so.
I mean, you'd have to watch the documentary.
Did you watch it?
Yeah, I watched it.
Would it? Is it?
Well, they didn't answer that question.
What did they
They
answer?
were too busy talking about how infinity's changed over the years.
But I don't think it can change.
Well, that's not what the documentary said. You know, at first they thought the galaxy stops, whatever.
But then it's not infinite.
It's not
It's
infinite.
finite.
It's finite. And then they thought, no, it goes on forever. And then someone said, well, what does that mean? If it goes on forever, you'll never reach the end. And then Einstein put forward this idea that, like, well, no, it could be like Earth, where if you keep walking east, you'll eventually come back to the same spot and go around again. And he said, maybe the universe is like that. When you get to what you think is the quote-unquote end, you just come back.
You come
to where
back
you
into.
started.
So then you have to think of another dimension. Up the way, say, for instance.
Up the up.
If you're only
dimension.
going east, west,
north, south.
north, south, but then you.
The up dimension.
And then what happens?
Well, you just
Is it a
hit
circular that way as well?
Yeah, it is. Do you hit the ceiling? You should watch it. It's on Netflix. You'd enjoy it. Something, something, something infinite. Or something, something, something infinity. I'm not sure. It's vague.
I'll try and work that out. Something, 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 infinite.
I think it's
What
infinity.
used to be
Yeah.
infinite?
I think it's something like the road to infinity or the path to infinity. I'll find that out for you. But I'm sure our guest would maybe have a few things to
Well,
say
we could maybe ask him.
about the infinite. And also, he spent quite a bit of time
He's done
studying.
tons of stuff.
Yeah, studying in the colder parts of the planet. So, well, let's bring on our guest, the
Yeah, why
wonderful
wouldn't we?
Byron Adams. Here he comes. Well, guys, as you know, I am a self-professed nerd in terms of animals, specifically invertebrates. Big fan of reptiles. I try and pride myself on being able to at least slightly know what animal I'm looking at. And if there's ever a quiz question about animals and I get it wrong, I spend weeks beating myself up about it. So I'm extremely excited to be joined on the show by Byron Adams, who is a PhD scientist studying the creatures that we find in soil generally. Is that right, Byron?
That's right, Dom.
Now, Byron, before you jump into it, I'm just going to read a little bit of your bio because it's very impressive and it has a lot of very big words. So I'll try my best. All right, here we go. After completing a Bachelor of Science, is that BS?
BS.
After completing a Bachelor of Science in Zoology at Brigham Young University in 1993, Byron earned his PhD in Biological Sciences at the University of Nebraska in 1998 and was postdoc at UC Davis in 1999 as an assistant professor in nematology and entomology department at the University of Florida. Byron taught courses in nematode morphology and anatomy, computer techniques in researches, and invertebrate field biology as an associate professor in the biology department and member of the BYU Evolutionary Ecology Laboratories. He currently teaches Bio 240, which is molecular biology, and Bio 651, which is co-evolutionary analysis. I did not mess up one word. Woohoo!
Very good.
So, Byron, you're interested in the very, very small creatures that run the world. Is that correct?
Yeah, the very small creatures that rule the world, I would say. They play super important part in the planet's homeostasis, like keeping the planet functioning. Yeah.
A lot of our planet outside of, you know, a lot of the ocean is soil based, you know, and a huge amount of creatures live inside that soil. It's generally a lot of animals that we don't see, and unfortunately because of that, a lot of humans just disregard those creatures. But could you talk a little bit more about specifically the importance of those animals and why they run the world for us?
Yeah, so first of all, much of the Earth's biodiversity is in the soil. In fact, it's probably the largest repository of diversity on our planet. And we sort of just walk around on it, terra incognita. We don't really know much about what's below our feet or how important it is in general. But those organisms that live in the soil perform all kinds of really important ecological processes for us. So like if you're interested in clean water or fertile soils, growing plants and food, bioremediation, taking care of pollutants that we put into the soils, then you need to be interested in the organisms that live there because those are the functions that they perform for us. So really important.
Lots of invertebrates, obviously, quite a number of insects live in the soil, but lots of invertebrates as well. Are there any other types of animals that are innumerate in the soil? Because obviously I can't think of a huge amount of mammals. Obviously there's a few that we know of, burrowing rats and mice and things like that. But the soil is generally not full of mammals or birds. It's taken up generally with invertebrates, right?
That's right. Typically, mostly taken up by invertebrates, and they're extremely abundant, and they're just really small, so we don't see them. We don't notice them like we would a mammal or a bird, or even macroinvertebrates like crickets and grasshoppers and things like that. Yeah, but they're incredibly abundant. So they're just nematode worms alone are the most abundant animals on our planet. So if you took all the animals on the planet, all the birds, the squirrels, the grasshoppers, zebras, and you put them in a big bag and you shook that bag up and you pulled out 5 animals, 4 of those animals would be a nematode worm.
Wow.
And most of your listeners are like, what's a nematode worm? Most people don't even know what those are, because they're so small and microscopic and beyond our view.
Well, let's educate them. Let's tell people out there what a nematode worm is and why there are so many on our planet.
Well, so nematode worms are microscopic roundworms. So they're not really like the night crawlers you might see in your yard. Those are segmented worms. These are roundworms, and for the most part, they're smaller than a millimeter long. So a really big one would be like a millimeter long. And they've lived on this planet for hundreds of millions of years, maybe even billions of years, some of the very first organisms to evolve on our planet. And they have very simple biology, very simple design, body plans, and that's made them perfect models of study. And so the first animal that had its genome sequenced was a nematode worm, for example.
Wow.
Yeah.
And they specifically eat and filter through soil. Is that what they do?
Yeah, so they perform all kinds of functions in soil, and some nematodes they just feed on bacteria, right? And they cycle nutrients like nitrogen and carbon and phosphorus. Others are parasites of plants and cause all kinds of human suffering because they're killing the plants that we want to eat. Some nematodes get into our stock animals, our farm animals, our pets even, right? Or even into humans and cause big problems, right? And so they're everywhere. Nematodes are everywhere on the planet. If you were to be sitting on the moon and looking at the planet Earth and you dissolved everything away except for just the nematode worms, you could still see the major features of the planet. You would be able to see the mountains and the oceans and even some biogeography. You'd be able to see like where the mammals live based on where the parasites, the nematode parasites of the mammals are on the Earth. That's how abundant and numerous they are.
The concentration of the worms in that area would show that there was a large animal in or around that place. I speak to people quite a lot about animals, and I'm a big fan of breaking myths about almost everything, and certainly in the animal world, with fear specifically, which I'm fascinated with people who are for the most part just generally scared of animals, and I start to point out that not only are we animals and we are part of the natural world, but that also we are around animals all the time. They're in our beds, they're in our fingernails, they're in our eyelashes, they live with us. And if we did not have animals around us, we would be dead relatively quickly, So this idea that nematode worms are so innumerate that, they dominate the animal world is something that people need to kind of just latch onto and be okay with, because it's not changing anytime soon,
it's not. And like you said, exactly like you said, you don't want it to change.
Right.
Like if they're gone, we're in big trouble.
Right. Well, let's go back, Byron, if I may, because we always like to find out the origins of people's interest, because maybe there's someone out there listening that is fascinated by soil or fascinated by biology or anything. For you, in your formative years, you know, between the ages of kind of 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 type thing, were you fascinated with animals? Were you fascinated with animals that lived in the soil? Where did this fascination come from for you?
I was fascinated with animals at an early age. I grew up on a very small farm in a really rural area where we had cows and ducks and sheep and rabbits and goats and everything on our farm. And so I got to be around it. I got to be around them. I got to see biology, life, animals everywhere that I was. And so that was, you know, during my formative years was really influential on my trajectory. But, you know, at the time, right, I wasn't really into soil animals. My father was a scuba diver, like what we would nowadays call dinosaur divers. So like this is the 1950s and the 60s, you know, where they would get their equipment at the Army Navy store, and people along the coast would line up and just watch these crazy people going into the water and scuba diving and stuff. And so I was raised in that environment. So not only did I learn the farm stuff, but also the ocean and the marine animals and those sorts of things. And so that was really influential in my interests in biology and in the study of animals as well. Yeah, so that got me going. And then when I got to university, you know, I just always thought if you love biology, if you love animals, your only career options are like medicine or you know, maybe if you're lucky you could be a veterinarian or something like that.
Sure.
Or if you're really lucky, you could have your own animal show, right? Like Cratch Creatures or Marlin Perkins or something like that.
Right.
And it wasn't until I got to university where I'm taking these courses that I realized, oh man, the world of animals is much bigger than I ever thought it was. And the ways that, you know, you could get paid to actually study these things. And I was blown away. I was like, yeah, that's the gig for me. So that's how I started down an academic path.
Nice. And obviously, you know, with these university studies that take place and you know, further education that goes on with PhDs and masters and all that kind of stuff, generally it is to serve the human species by studying these creatures or studying these environments. So specifically with you studying the invertebrates that live in the soil, is that so that we can try and have healthier soil, try and have healthier land for us, for the human animal?
Yeah, often, you know, we pursue knowledge just for the sake of knowledge, right? We just want to know more. We want to know more stuff. But as it always works out, knowledge is very much empowering, right? And the more we understand these organisms and their functions in the soil, it turns out it's allowing us to address a lot of really important problems that we face with our things like soil fertility and primary production, like just growing food, right? In terms of, you know, meeting growing demands for the number of people that we need to feed on this planet, and being able to deal with the, you know, the pollution that we face and those sorts of things. And so a better understanding of what these organisms are and what their functions are in the soil are starting to illuminate their importance and help us to understand how we can be better stewards, how we can treat the soil, manage our ecosystem so that they can be healthier and more productive.
And at this particular juncture that we're at in human evolution, where would be classically the healthiest soil on the planet, and where would be the soil that is in most need of some help?
Yeah, this is an interesting question, and it gets at some of the topics you've talked about on some of your other podcasts, right? About like what's good and what's bad, or what's healthy or what's unhealthy, right? What's a good insect versus a bad insect. And, you know, we have to put that into context. You know, it's like, you know, what's good for one thing might be bad for another. But in general, like our most fertile places that we can grow food, you know, humans really have hammered those areas really hard. And we have degraded our soils in these areas. And so it's only now that science is starting to catch up with that, and we're coming up with ways that we can, you know, better take care of our soils. But, you know, in terms of like human evolution and where we've lived before and where we've been able to build our societies and our civilizations, I mean, almost every, you show me a civilization that has collapsed, and I can show you a civilization that is not taking care of its soil resources, right? Almost every single time you look at a civilization that's collapsed, it corresponds with degradation of their soils and their ability to sustain their population.
Right, these disappearing communities of people that seem to have vanished overnight. When we look at them through history, like you said, that it's either the water has run out or the soil is something that has now been tarnished. They can't plant their crops there anymore. Yeah, fascinating. I mean, obviously, humans have spent a lot of time living next to huge bodies of fresh water because that's helpful, and also at the base of volcanoes because that creates fertile soil initially. But as you said, if you're farming that soil over generations, sooner or later it becomes depleted, and that's why now you have kind of fallow land that gets left for a few years so they can come back to it, huh?
Yep, that's right. Yeah, so we're starting to learn more about practices that we can engage in that will better retain our nutrients and our soil and the structure of the soil without leaching it out to the oceans, and then those nutrients that are great for our soils end up really messing up our waterways. And so being able to keep our soils intact and prevent soil erosion ends up being an important mitigation strategy.
So you must spend a lot of time in your day looking through a microscope, since so many of these animals that you're studying are barely able to be seen by the naked eye, right?
Yeah, I spend some time looking at them under a microscope, but in the last 10 or 20 years or so, we've spent a lot more time looking at them at like their genomes and their DNA sequences and things like that, and the impact that they have on the soil chemistry, the geochemistry, and that kind of stuff. But yeah, I spend a lot of time behind a microscope, particularly when I'm in Antarctica, collecting the animals there and identifying, enumerating them, deciding which species they are, and that sort of stuff.
I have a microscope at home too. I was brought up, my dad was a science teacher, and my brother continues to be a science teacher, and we, here and there throughout our childhood, we would have a microscope in our house. Maybe our dad would bring back a microscope for the summer holidays or for the Christmas holidays, and I still have that now in my house. It's on my dining room table. Guaranteed, if I see an animal a small animal that I've not yet seen dead before, because I've seen dead bees so many times, I don't pick up dead bees anymore. But if I'm walking to my car and I see a dead invertebrate, I'll usually just put it in the queue, in the line next to my microscope for something to look at. For me, it's like a little game of being an animal detective, which I've always kind of enjoyed. Not only am I hoping to maybe come up with a hypothesis as to how that animal might have died, but maybe what actually killed that animal or what ate that animal based on, it avoided the crunchy legs and went straight for the kind of soft body parts, or sometimes, it's been broken apart into different pieces. And I love, well, it's almost like looking at a crime scene and you're like, okay, we have the dead body, and now we go backwards from the dead body to see what actually occurred. Like, does it have a disease? Did it die in the hot summer sun? I can do that all the time, and I generally do.
Yeah, I love it.
Well, let's talk about Antarctica, because classically, one would think that invertebrates don't do well in Antarctica, but obviously there are some creatures that not only do well in Antarctica, but kind of flourish there because they don't have a huge amount of competition. So can you kind of break some of these myths and tell us what animals actually do well in those sub-zero conditions?
Yeah. So one of the myths is that the entire continent of Antarctica is completely covered with ice, and most of it is. About 98% of the continent is covered by an ice sheet that on average is about a mile thick, right? And at the South Pole, it's 2 miles thick. You're drilling through 2 miles of ice before you hit the dirt below it. But the transantarctic mountains run across that continent, and they prevent the ice sheet from coming over the other side of the mountains. And so on the leeward side of the mountains, you got these large ice-free areas. And then sort of dotted around the continent, you've also got some areas that are ice-free, where you have soils, you have open soils. And there are organisms that live there, and things like tardigrades and nematodes. And up in the peninsula area, you even have some insects that are there. But the biodiversity is extremely low. There are very, very few animals that can live
Yeah.
in Antarctica. Now, when I say animals in Antarctica, most people, they think, oh, like, I know, like penguins, man, and seals and killer
Right, right.
whales and that kind of stuff. And I'm like, yeah, nah, those are all cool, but they all live in the ocean. Those are marine animals. And so if we're talking about the charismatic megafauna of continental Antarctica, you're talking about microscopic animals that mostly live in the soil. And these animals have persisted there for a long time. So originally people thought, oh, with the ice ages, that continent was completely covered with ice. And so all of these organisms that live there had to have recolonized that continent in the last 15,000 years or so. And those of us who study these animals and look at them and we understand their evolution, we're like, yeah, that's a totally bogus idea. Like these organisms are endemic. They evolved to live here a long, long time ago, and they've somehow been able to survive, you know, these glacial cycles and these crazy cycles of extreme cold and ice mass on the continent. But yeah, so these organisms are adapted to live in these really cold, dry, nasty environments, and they're super tough. They can survive their cells being frozen like a popsicle and then come back alive when they thaw out. They can be frozen to a crisp, like freeze dried to a crisp, and then you add water and they come back alive again. And so in that sense, those are some of the adaptive strategies they have to survive in such a harsh area.
Yeah, so we hit upon the nematode worm a while ago, but the tardigrade, which has obviously picked up quite a bit of momentum in the world's media as being quote unquote the world's toughest animal and all this kind of stuff, can live in the great expanses of our solar system, and you know, can get put into a microwave, you can hit it with a hammer, all this kind of stuff. Some of that might not be true, some of it could be moving into folklore, but so the common name for it, is it the woolly bear? Is that what you guys have
the
coined it?
water bear, we call it. They're like
The
water
water
bear
bear.
or water piglet. They look like little pigs crawling around in your dish. When you
Yeah,
look at 'em
a
under
squishy
microscope.
little face, right,
Yeah.
with like rudimentary leg type appendages. And they have been on this planet for a long, long time without having seemed to evolve too much because they haven't needed to, right? They've perfected what they need to look like.
Yeah, they haven't had to add much to their repertoire, right? And and the same, and you know, they get a lot of press for being super tough, but they're in the same class with nematodes and rotifers. They're all able to survive, you know, about the same types of environmental insults, and they've been around a long, long time. They evolved these mechanisms a long, long time ago. And it's not just the animals in Antarctica that can do this. I mean, the animals outside, the nematodes and the tardigrades, the rotifers that live in like hot deserts and cold deserts and other places are also able to do this sort of stuff. It's just that the ones that survived in Antarctica have sort of like upped their game a bit and you do it at a more extreme level.
It's a much harsher environment. I mean, there are some amphibians that can, you know, get frozen into blocks of ice and come back, right? But it's probably not quite as extreme as Antarctica. These animals have obviously evolved to be able to sit in a space of kind of stasis for a long, long time until the temperatures become in some way more manageable. When you said that you can freeze them into, you know, a block of ice like a popsicle or freeze dry them, when you guys are studying them at that particular point, is it when you're watching them, are they essentially asleep, or are they still going through, you know, are they eating, are they breathing, are they moving, or are they just frozen?
They're in what we call like suspended animation. They've gone into a state of like cryptobiosis, we call it, or when they're dried out, we call it anhydrobiosis, life without water. And so they're just in suspended animation, and they can survive in that state for long, long periods of time. And then, you just provide, you know, liquid water, and they come back alive again, and they're active again.
How quickly is that process? If you've got a tardigrade that's frozen and you then introduce some liquid water to it, will it start to show signs of life within a couple of minutes, or is it hours?
It's between minutes and hours. Yeah, it's really fascinating. It just totally blows my mind every time I see it, right? Because I got these in my freezer, you know, and some of them are like 15, 20 years old, and I pull them out, I warm them up, add liquid water, and you just watch them slowly come back alive again. It's totally the coolest thing.
They must be starving at that point. What does a tardigrade generally eat? Is it soil matter, vegetation?
Yeah. So the ones that we study, they eat bacteria mostly, we think, and maybe yeast cells and stuff like that. They're microbivorous. They crawl around and graze on bacteria that's growing in the soil environment for the most part. Some of them are predators. Some of them can eat other microinvertebrates, small animals. But the majority of the ones that we study in Antarctica, they're at the very top of the food chain. There's nothing else that eats them, and they eat bacteria. And so you can see it's a very simple food web.
If you're watching the average nematode worm or tardigrade that isn't going through this kind of crypto hibernation, what is their general life cycle that they would have in a normal life?
Yeah, so like outside your window there in the park, if you had a handful of these animals, their life cycle, every 3 weeks they would probably go from egg to adult and have like hundreds and hundreds of offspring, and that would be their life cycle, 2 to 3 week life cycles when it's summertime. In Antarctica, we get liquid water for, like maybe 4, 5, 6 weeks out of the year. And so that's just barely enough time for them to thaw out, maybe graze a little, grow a little bit, and then they have to freeze again. And so it might take 7 years in Antarctica for them to complete their life cycle. Eventually, they get a great summer when they're mature adults. They find females, they mate, and then maybe the next year they lay their eggs, and then the year after that they might hatch. So you can see that their life cycles are greatly extended just because of the environment that they're in.
And for you in that environment, how often in the year are you taking field trips to Antarctica?
So we go to Antarctica every year. So I'm part of a long-term ecological research project there that's started before I started going down there in 1993. And every year we study how these ecosystems are responding to climate-driven changes, right? So disturbance is climate, and the response is these soil communities and the chemistry of those soils. And so when I go down there, I'm down there for maybe 2 or 3 months out of the year. So every year I go down there for 2 or 3 months, and we collect our samples and do all our science and our research and that sort of stuff. And then we ship. We mostly do field work while we're there, and then we ship the samples back here to my lab, where we do the genetics and the genomics and that kind of stuff.
Right. And so how many do you have a guess as to how many times you've been down to Antarctica now?
Yeah, I've been down to Antarctica 18 times, I think.
Nice.
Yeah.
And if you were to speak to the Byron that went down the first time as opposed to the Byron that went down on the 18th time, what have you learned over that time? Like, were you overpacking the first time? Did you bring 15 pairs of gloves and you only really need one? Like, what's changed in that time?
Yeah, so the first few times I went down, I wasn't ever certain I was going to ever come back again. And so I always had to like overpack. And now I've got like a stash bag that I can keep down in McMurdo Station, so I don't have to pack quite as much stuff back and forth every year. I just kind of keep my big boots and some of the extra socks and long underwear and that sort of stuff down there.
Right.
Yeah, so like in terms of what I've learned, what my old me would say to my new me is, I'm glad you asked that question, because I think I'm still just as blown away by how amazing it is to do research down there now as I was then. I mean, now then I didn't know what I was doing until I actually got my boots on the ground and started looking at these ecosystems, and it was just amazing. Like Mother Nature had done this incredible experiment by controlling for biodiversity. Like outside your office there, a handful of soil would have like maybe 30, 40 species of just nematode worms and hundreds of thousands of individuals, and in Antarctica, you got like 1, 2, 3 species of worms, and abundance is really low. There's no plants above ground to mess up what happens in the soil. Plants take stuff out of the atmosphere, they pump it into the soil. It complicates things. And in Antarctica, Mother Nature controlled for that. And so the first time I got down to Antarctica and I looked around, I just saw testable hypotheses everywhere I looked. It was total brain candy for science nerds, and it continues to be that way. So
that's great. And then obviously we, in the last kind of 25 or 30 years or so, we have pushed quite heavily this idea of climate change and the significance of what humans are doing to change the environment on our planet. It is quite profoundly felt and seen in the polar regions because, as you said, there's not a huge amount more there apart from massive amounts of ice, which is, depleting at an accelerated rate. 18 years ago when you went down there, what are you now seeing that you can very accurately attribute to climate change?
Yeah, that's a great question.
A sad
18
one
years
as well.
It's
Like
it's a sad one, but I mean, we were lucky to be in a position that we could anticipate. We could make predictions about what we thought would happen with climate change, and we could set up experiments, and we could set up monitoring experiments where we could then test these hypotheses. And so one of the things that we predicted was that as it gets warmer and wetter, that some of these animals that like it warm and wet are going to increase in abundance and expand across the landscape. And then the animals that like it cold and dry and harsh and salty, they're going to become less abundant, and they're going to contract their ranges across the landscape. And you look at our data, and that's exactly what we're starting to see. We're starting to see these big changes in the structure of these communities across the landscape in response to these climate-driven changes. And then, as those organisms change their abundance and their distribution, I mean, you can think about their functions, right? What's their function in those ecosystems? And that changes the functioning of these ecosystems as well. So we're able to study these in these simple ecosystems and then hopefully use that information to scale up, right? To inform, how we now might understand or study our agricultural ecosystems or our managed ecosystems, our natural forest ecosystems, and those sorts of things.
When you're down there, you're staying in a field research center, is that right?
Yeah, there's a field research center. So there's a big, McMurdo Station is like a big giant Flying J truck stop kind of thing. It's like a college campus almost. Right. And then we do our field work. We fly in helicopters out to the field, and we live in like smaller remote field camps out there. Yeah.
The helicopters do okay out there? Like the thinness of the air is not something that they need to be conscious of, or is it?
They do have to be conscious of that sort of thing, and I'm always amazed at the skill that these helicopter pilots have. It just, you can see in their head, they're just constantly doing math, making calculations about how much weight they have and what the air temperature is and how much lift they're going to get and that sort of thing. They do, and of course, notoriously, the weather in Antarctica is just awful, and it can, it can get bad really quickly. And so I'm always like total respect for the folks who do science support down there, the helicopter pilots and the technicians and those folks.
Yeah. Obviously, when you're down there, you're working as hard as you can, and I'm sure you guys work a lot. Are there days where the person who calls the shots comes to you guys and says, unfortunately, no one's going out today, it's not possible? And if that's the case, what do you guys do instead? Are you like really good at Scrabble or like really good at Tetris?
Yeah, so you have to be really, really good at being flexible, MacGyvering things, like just making do. And, we've got so much work to get done that, if they say, hey, you're not flying to this place or that place, you're staying here today, then we're like, cool, we can do this and this and this while we're there. And that happens pretty frequently, like daily or like multiple times per day. We're having to adjust our schedule in response to that sort of stuff. Yeah.
Is there a ping pong table down there or a pool table? Can you guys watch Netflix? Like what do you do?
Yeah, so all of that's available, but we don't do much of that, honestly. We have such a short window of time to do the science mission that we're after. And, like we tell each other, oh, we're going to just work hard until sundown, right? And, it's kind of funny because the sun never goes down when we're down there, right? It's like we have 24-hour sunlight. And so we're working so hard. We have such a limited time to collect our samples, to do our experiments, and to get all of that stuff done, that there's very little downtime. And when we do have downtime, when the weather's bad or whatever, we just adjust and do something else. But I will say, that the folks that work down there are incredibly creative. They're all artists and writers and musicians, and hilarious, brilliant people, and you put them all in one spot, and it's a magical place, you know. So
Yeah.
if you did have downtime and you couldn't do anything, there's something to be done there. Yeah.
Right. I mean, you guys are contained, so I'm sure, obviously, you know, you guys come up with stuff because, you know, you have a huge amount of limitations. So you're like, okay, this is our playground. This is what we've got. That's fun. How about any strange phenomena? Have you seen any bizarre things in the night sky? Have you had any close shaves with large predators? Are there any anecdotal stories of, you know, people being chased by something that you can't quite make sense of, or anything like that?
I love this because there is a lot of really nutty lore out there about
Yes.
Antarctica, and so I always get, you know, from the flat earthers, they ask me, you know, is there really a wall of ice that, you know, like I've flown over the continent, you know, it's the earth is round or whatever, or are there like Nazi cyborg bases hidden somewhere in the ice, you know, or these no-fly zones, like you know, been there, like no, you know,
Right.
it's all good.
Right.
You know, most of the and honestly, we're really safe while we're there. Like, safety is the top priority
Yeah.
for everything that we do. People come first, and so there's, you know, but having said that, it is still very dangerous. There's still people that fall into crevasses and they pass away, or we can't save them, or people who, you know, have, you know, a heart attack while they're scuba diving or something, and
Right.
you know, they pass away.
Right.
So those sorts of events do happen,
Right.
but it's very rare. And most of the time, anytime that we're in danger, it's usually weather related
Yeah.
or mechanical related types of things. The most dangerous thing I do down there probably is just flying helicopters.
Yeah.
It's the most dangerous thing that we do.
It's like the most dangerous thing that we do in our day is driving in our car. That's your
Yeah,
equivalent of a
right,
car,
yeah.
right? So, and there's an on-site doctor hospital type vibe down there at all times. Is that right?
Yeah. There's a small hospital at McMurdo Station. There's a doctor that's on call there, but they have very limited resources.
Sure.
You know, they can basically package you up
Yeah.
and hopefully
Send you
get you
off.
to a trauma center. But you know, the closest trauma center is in, you know, Christchurch, New Zealand, and
Right.
you know, that can be, from the time you're injured to the time you get there, can be like 18 hours or
Right.
so we go through really strenuous physical qualification tests and stuff like that before we go down to
Right.
make sure that we don't have anything that might act up while we're there.
Sure.
And then we're just really careful while we're there.
And you touched upon the notion earlier on that you don't have a night sky because the sun doesn't set over there. At no point in the year does it set, or just when you guys are down there it doesn't set?
Just when we're down there, it doesn't set. So the sun rises once, and then it sets once each year. So it'll rise, in this, like August, September, October, and then it stays up above the horizon until like February, March, and then it'll go below the horizon. So you essentially get 5 months of darkness and 5 months of full sunlight, with about a month of, what do you call it, like twilight or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah. And how about things like food? Is there any complications with food? I mean, obviously, if you're eating your food anywhere near where it's cold, you're going to be in trouble. But inside the center itself, you're toasty. You're not struggling to stay warm.
Yeah, so in our field camps, we have little huts where we can cook and keep our feed, and all the food that we eat is like past its expiration date usually, because it comes down, like a year at least. Like the freshest food that we get is at least a year old. It comes down on a ship the prior season, and we make do with that. It's just fine. We get by. But you do, when you're cold and you're working hard, you burn a lot of calories, and
Yeah.
so we end up eating a lot.
Yeah. And there must
Yeah,
be.
I gain about 5 pounds a year probably.
Oh, nice. But like you said, you need that little insulation because it's so cold down there. Have you guys hosted a lot of film crews? Because obviously there's a lot of people trying to make shows about the Antarctic environment.
Yeah. So there are film crews that come down. Logistically, it's very challenging. Like if you wanted to do a show in Alaska, you just load it up in a van and you drive up there. But, getting your film crew to Antarctica is super challenging because it has to fit in, along with, the science programs. And so the Air Force is the one that flies us down. There's only so many seats on these airplanes, and And so typically when film crews come down, they're really much smaller. They're scaled down. They have to be really nimble. They have to make do with, certain, the number of people operating cameras and sound and producers and things like that are much smaller than a normal production would be.
Yeah.
But yeah, they come down frequently, usually once a year. Like they'll overlap with me in the field sometimes and come down, and I've learned a lot from them. They're super cool folks.
Yeah, I bet. But I'm sure a lot of those guys are quite keen to find some of the classically easier to understand animals, whereas you're leaning towards, oh no, you should look at this thing that's inside my hand here.
That's true. And most of the time they're like, oh yeah, cool story, bro. Where's the penguins? Right?
Yeah.
It's kind of like that.
Yeah.
These charismatic organisms that are there. But to be fair, like a lot of the folks who have been down there, in my 18 years, honestly, they really do care about the science. They care about the story. They care about making a difference with their work, and I really appreciate that.
Yeah, man. I mean, I think it is a shame. Again, I'm always trying to help people out with understanding the natural world a little bit more, and I do think it's a shame that we found ourselves in this position of saying, whatever, this animal is good, this animal is bad, or this animal is cool, this animal is boring. Even animals that can very easily hurt us, like lions and great whites, are now at a point of like, well, yeah, they can hurt us, but they're so cool and they do this and everyone wants to see them. You're like, yeah, that's a really fun thing to watch an animal bring down a Thompson's gazelle, or watch a shark kill a seal. But these very small, tiny animals that seem to be doing little things universally are doing something profound, and we need to connect to that. If you're an animal lover, I mean, almost anyone claims to be an animal lover. This is another thing that I talk about with people. Most people, it's like saying, do you like films? People are like, yeah, I like films. Everyone likes films. Who doesn't like films? If you say, do you like animals? People are like, yeah, of course I love animals. I have a dog, I have a cat, I have a parrot or whatever. But then my vibe with those people is, it's not a selective group. You don't get to pick which animals you love. If you're an animal lover, you love all animals. You love ticks. You love leeches, you love bats, you love slugs, in the same way that we love elephants and gorillas and dogs and cats. If you're flying the flag of saying you're an animal lover, then let's see it.
Yeah, I love that. And think about it: if all we studied were those charismatic mammals and birds and reptiles, our understanding of the world, our place in the world, would be just, it would be so minuscule. Right. And then also back to the question of like good and bad. You think about the biomedical breakthroughs that we've had in genetics and biomedicine that have come from nematode worms, for example, or fruit flies. Our study of Drosophila and those sorts of things, because they're manageable. We can work on them in the lab. We can understand them. They're simpler, and then we can scale up to humans. We can scale up to primates and use that information to make a difference. And if all we did was just study ourselves and our dogs and our cats and primates and maybe crocodiles and stuff, we would miss out on all of that.
Absolutely we would. And we're all connected. We all living animals and plants and trees and fungi are all sharing this collected experience on planet Earth, and that is a beautiful thing to try and connect to. I say that sometimes to people who I try not to let it happen in front of me, but someone said, oh, I saw a spider today and I killed it, or there was a bee in my house and I crushed it, or I stood on an ant today because it was in my way. And I try and have them connect to this idea of like, that's someone's son or daughter. That is a creature that is looking for shelter. It's a creature that's looking for food, for safety, to get out of the cold, to get out of the roasting hot temperatures. They're telling the same stories that we're telling. We're all someone's son or daughter. We're all trying to stay safe. We're trying to procreate. We're trying to do the right thing. And just because you can kill an animal, very often it doesn't mean that you should. Don't get me wrong. If I'm in rooms with no mosquito nets and a mosquito's having a go at me all night, there's a pretty strong chance that I'm going to swat it. But if I have a mosquito net and it can't get to me, I'm going to leave it alone and let it do its thing. This is an animal having a life experience. Who am I to just kill it, you know?
Yeah, and we've co-evolved with all of these animals. We have a shared evolutionary history with so many of these animals. And what we're finding is that as we remove them from our environment, we suffer, right? Not like our mental health, our physical health suffers as we remove them from us. We try and separate ourselves from our co-evolved natural world. And we ended up being worse off for it. You know, it turns out being exposed to some parasites, you know, is really good for our immune system. And folks that have, just take hygiene to the next level, their immune systems end up suffering because of that. I think just in general, I really like the picture you paint with that. That there's this whole planet that we share with all of these other organisms. And when we try and manipulate that, when we try and change those relationships, sometimes it ends up not being like a great outcome.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Byron, it's been fantastic talking to you. We love having people on that come from a place of passion. We love having people on that obviously enamored with the natural world, because myself and Billy are too. And you do fantastic work, man. And good luck to you on your next trip to Antarctica. When do you next go? When's the next field trip for you?
So next time I head down will be in early December of this year. Nice. We'll be down December, January, February.
Oh, so you're always there over the Christmas period, and you guys obviously celebrate a little Christmassy thing, yeah?
Yeah, we do our best to celebrate a little bit and have a good time down there.
Fantastic. Well, Byron, it's lovely talking to you. Good luck to you in your chosen field of study and in life in general.
Yeah, thanks a ton, Tom. Thanks for thinking of me. I had a great time here, and thanks for all you do to spread the love.
Thanks, Byron. All right, take it easy, man.
Harmonize with me and hold me tight all through the night. You're shining bright, I'm your oyster, baby, you're my pearl.